The first thing we're going to do is just take a quick survey, an AI comfort level survey. So I want you to click on that first link in there, AI comfort level survey, and then just fill it out. It's very fast. You don't have to type anything. You're answering I think it's about 5 questions. We are, for those of you that just joined, we are answering the questions on the AI comfort level survey. So I know that in the last year, the Connected Learning team has been going out and talking about AI in schools. We have really shared several different tools and topics, but today we're looking at School AI, a specific one that we've actually never covered before. That wasn't intentional. We didn't like intentionally say we're going to hold this one off until June. It just happened to be that we didn't know about this one until later on. So we found this one later in our journey. And we're really excited to bring it to you. The reason we like School AI and the reason we're bringing it to everybody is because not only does it have all the teacher tools that like some other like Magic School and things like that might have, it also has the student tools, and in a way that we feel comfortable presenting it to students in terms of like, it's not going to collect data on our kids. It's not going to allow for inappropriate behavior on there. It's not really going to allow for cheating. So if a student says, can you answer this question for me? Or can you write this prompt for me? It's not going to do that kind of stuff. And we'll explore that a little bit today. So again, for those of you that just joined us, I'm going to send the meeting agenda one more time in the chat, and then we are filling out that AI comfort level survey. If you don't get a chance to fill that out right away, that's totally fine. So let's talk about School AI. Let me get School AI pulled up on my screen so that we can get started with this fun little tour here. All right, so School AI, as I mentioned, is not only teacher focused, but it is also student focused. We're going to talk about 3 main places today with School AI. We're going to talk about spaces, tools, and assistants. Tools and assistants are for you as the teacher. So when you're looking at using School AI, tools and assistants is where you will go. Spaces will be for your students. We'll actually look at those last because I want you to see how you're going to use it as a teacher. Now, do not go into School AI yet. I know some of you are going to be eager. You're going to want to get in there right away. Don't do it. Not yet. We will get there. We will get there in just a minute. We're going to first just look at some examples of these things, okay? So I'm going to go through tools first. We'll talk about the difference again of all 3 once we cover all of them, but I'm going to start in tools. Tools will look very similar to Magic School if you've used that. It will have some of the same functionality as Diffit if you've used that at all. So we're going to see in tools here several options of pre-built, we're going to call them bots today, pre-built bots for us to use for any type of activity, right? Okay, when am I going to use a tool? A tool is going to be used when I want to create a product, as in a worksheet or something, maybe a rubric that I might be printing, some kind of document. Okay, and you'll see why in just a second. But I've got all these tools here. I've got a lesson plan generator. How many people wish that was around when we were in college? Worksheet generator, rubric generator. We can see all of these different options here. Lots of things. The one that I'm going to start with today, I'm only going to show you one, and then I'm going to give you a chance to look at each of these individually. But we're going to look at a time-based activity. So I know in my classroom, there were times where maybe like a convocation would be happening and my class period was shrunk and I only had like 20 minutes with the kids. What am I going to do for 20 minutes when I normally have 45 minutes? Something like that. So in this example, I'm going to choose third grade. I'm going to choose that we have about 15 minutes. So you can see here, let's actually zoom in a little so you guys can see that better. I chose my grade level. I said, here's the duration of the activity. I only have 15 minutes with them. I only have 20 minutes with them. I've got 5 minutes, something along those lines. And then I'm going to talk about the subject or topic. So a few tips with this. Obviously, the more details you add, the better the results are going to be, of course. But if I don't add details right away, I do have some editing options once I get into the tool that I can always replace things. If it spits out something and I'm like, this is garbage, I don't have to use it. I'm not tied to this. School AI is not going to be offended if I don't use what they wrote. So my subject today is going to be biomes. And I actually want to do a biomes review game. I'm going to just say for third graders, even though it really already knows. But again, the more details, the better. So I might also say these are the specific biomes that I'm going to review. But I've never taught third grade, so I'm just going to keep it really general right now. Biomes review game for third graders. Notice at the bottom of that, I also have add a standard. I'm not going to do this today, but they do actually have all state standards loaded into SchoolAI tools. So I could click add a standard, go to the Indiana third grade standards and check for any biome standards that I want to include. So if you're saying, okay, well, I hate teaching this. What's that standard that you don't want to teach or that you're teaching right now and you've got that 20 minutes? So the convocation is Thursday. We're supposed to be talking about this. What am I going to do with that time? I can add a standard in there. Notice that I can also upload a file. So same idea. If I have a document, maybe like a reading passage that the students were supposed to go through, and now I want a 15-minute activity that's going to be attached to that document, I can do the same thing. It's going to scan it and it's going to say, hey, here's the topic that I found. Here's what activity you can do. But I'm going to keep it really general right now, and I'm going to just say generate. Now it's going to do its wizardry, and it is going to generate this. Remember, we talked about it being a document. So it's generating a document for me right now. Okay, so the general idea for this document is that I'm supposed to create flashcards with different biomes. And then each flashcard would have a picture of the biome and 3 facts about it. And then students have to answer questions. Great. Except that I don't have, it gives me the questions right here. That's awesome. But it doesn't give me the biomes or the pictures or the answers to those questions. So, okay, do I have to create those things myself? No, I can have SchoolAI do those things for me. So here's my document here. Looks great. Notice at the top, I have all of these editing options. So just like you would have in Google Docs, I can edit this document just as I need to. But in my game setup here, I've got my game rules, activity flow. Okay, down here, I'm going to just start editing this document and I'm going to put a title that says biomes. Just because I'm a little OCD with my formatting, I'm also going to make it look like the rest of my document. But now, and this is my favorite, now I'm going to do a / because that's going to bring up a list of options that I have. And the first 2 options are AI writer and AI image. Okay, so I want to click AI writer and I'm going to say, give me 4 biomes that third graders should know. Awesome. There's 4 biomes. I can click insert. I can also say maybe change the tone, cancel, discard. If I want to redo that prompt, I can do that as well, but I'm just going to click this little check mark here, insert, and now that's part of my document. Okay, so now I have at least some information here. So my rainforest biome, that's great, but what am I missing that my flashcard also said that I needed? My flashcard also said I should probably have a picture of each of these biomes. Again, I don't have a picture of these things right now. I could go out to Google or Canva or whatever, but I'm already in this document. So I'm going to do that / again. And this time I'm going to choose AI image and I'm going to say rainforest biome. And I'm going to just play around with my image style. We'll do some 3D model. Generate image. This one's going to take a little longer to generate, just as an FYI. It doesn't generate as fast as the content. And I won't have you sit through me generating images for all 4 biomes, but we'll just get this rainforest one. So you can see that I can easily manipulate any of the content that's in there, add to any of the content that's in there. So I can add my own stuff, or I can add AI generated stuff. So here's my beautiful rainforest picture. Easy. Right now it's just in a preview. So again, I can change the prompt. I can change the style of the picture, cancel, discard, insert, or regenerate. So I'm going to insert this. I'm going to make it just a little smaller so it fits on my page. So maybe I have like 4 of those little cards. Obviously, then I would have to like format it and make it so that I could print these things and all of that stuff. But AI and SchoolAI is really just helping me take this idea of, I want them to do some kind of review game. I want it to be about 15 minutes long. And where am I getting this content from, right? And I make some of those adjustments in here. Okay, so our basic text editing tools, we have all of those at the top here. We talked about our AI prompting for writing, our AI image generator. And now at the top left, we also have some AI tools to just change the content a little bit. So I'm going to read these because they might be a little small for you. So AI tools in the top left, I want to create a custom prompt. I want to simplify the text. I want to fix spelling or grammar. So if I also typed in there, I want it to fix some of those spelling and error or grammar errors. Make the content shorter, make it longer, change the tone of the content. That TLDR is too long, didn't read. So essentially it's going to put a summary at the top of my document explaining everything that's in the document. That one's really good for newsletters. So if you've got newsletter content or like an email, pop an email in here and say, make a too long, didn't read section at the top. And then if somebody really wants to read all the content, then they can go down to the bottom. Emojify and translate. So there's a ton of translate options in here. They're constantly adding more. So I can translate the document, it will make a copy, and then keep all that content the same. Maybe though, I want to take some of this content here. I'm just going to highlight that, go to my AI tools and do something a little fun with it, and I'm going to emojify it. So now it's going to add a few emojis. I'm a little underwhelmed by those emojis that I just added. Maybe, there we go. Added some animals for me. So it's just adding a little content or a little pizzazz to my content in my document there. So if I'm thinking about like creating a worksheet for the students, I can add those little emojis in my directions for them or whatever. So it's really easy here to create that document. I could have from the beginning just like created it and then done. I don't have to do anything else. I can share the document right here. So if I click that share link and I paste it in here, even without a SchoolAI account, you as the teacher or you as a user, you're able to get in here and look at that document. my students could do the exact same thing. So let's imagine that it is like a worksheet or a reading prompt or a reading passage or something like that. Not something that I'm going to print for students, just something that I want them to see the content. I can just share that link with them and then they're able to see everything that's on that document. So that link is then live. Any updates that I make to it will go to that link, all of that stuff. Same thing if I want to share it like with a colleague. I've created something, I want them to have a copy of it. I can do the same thing there. The other options I have to share are to export it. So I can actually export it as a PDF and a Google Doc. So if I wanted to throw it into Google Docs and then maybe if I'm an elementary teacher, put it into Google Classroom for them, or even upload it to Canvas as a PDF, something like that, I'm able to do that very easily. Right underneath that, you'll see that I have my prompt. So this is my original prompt here. If I go through and change any of this information and click regenerate, it will create a copy of this as the new version. So maybe the 15 minutes ended up being 10 minutes or 25 minutes, and I just want it to change it. Then it will regenerate that content and it'll keep the original plus the regenerated content. Okay, so that's all great, but let's say I like create something, like where does it go? So I'm gonna go back to my homepage in SchoolAI. Because you might be like, maybe this summer is a good time to kind of explore some of those tools and create some things. So where's my stuff is what I want to know. I'm gonna come back to tools here. We saw this at the beginning, all of our little cards and everything like that. Notice under time-based activity, I have this link here that says 6 documents. That means that I have created 6 time-based activities. So depending on which of these tools I'm using, it's going to have the number of documents underneath it. If I scroll all the way to the bottom of this page, it's actually going to have every document that I've created. So it's not going to be categorized in each of those things. You can see here, I have a time-based activity for linear equations. This was one that I regenerated. So I started with it and then I regenerated it. So it kept both of those documents there. I can always go in here, rename them, duplicate them, delete them. So if you end up getting a bunch that you're like, I don't really need this, you're able to get those out of there. I didn't talk about renaming it, but it's just like Google Docs where I can click on the name and rename it right at the top. Okay, the next question that I had for SchoolAI was, this is great, but is there a limit to what I can create? And there is not a limit to what you can create. So there are no limits in here on how many documents you can create, how often you can use it, all of that stuff. So that's super awesome. Now, I know you probably want to get into tools, but not yet. We're going to look at one more thing, and then I will give you some time to get into tools and assistants. So assistants are actually going to be the next thing that we'll look at. So the question is in here, when will I use tools and when will I use assistants? We're going to think about what's our end goal. If I want a thing, a document, I'm going to use tools. I want a thing. If I want an idea, I'm going to use assistants. Tools are things, assistants are ideas. So think of assistants. If any of you have played around with ChatGPT or Gemini or any of those generative AI tools, that's going to be very similar to assistants. Okay, so there's a lot of assistants in here. How do I know which one to pick? My suggestion is I always kind of start with co-teacher. Imagine it's somebody sitting next to you where you're like, hey, I got this idea. Can you help me like refine it a little bit? The nice thing with SchoolAI assistants versus ChatGPT or Gemini is they already know you're a teacher. This already knows that you're a teacher. That's why you're using it. With Gemini or ChatGPT, it has no idea what your occupation is and doesn't know that you want to maybe align it to standards or talking about student safety and all of those things. This already knows that. So I like starting with co-teacher. You're going to see a couple of my prompts kind of over on the side, but you can always start with any of these other items if they feel more appropriate for you. But I'll start with co-teacher. The great thing about co-teacher and with our tools too, we saw this, is anytime I come in here and I chat with co-teacher, notice on the right-hand side, it's going to keep that chat history. So I can always go back to one, like if I've started a chat and then I'm like, oh, I want to recall that because I remember there being a good idea in there somewhere. I want to look back at some of that history in there. So I'm able to do that easily. I'm going to start a new chat, but I will just, as an FYI, it is going to be the same as this World War I causes because it's a pretty good one. Okay, so we're looking at, we're going to go all the way up from 3rd grade to high school social studies. So I'm a high school social studies teacher and I am teaching about World War I causes, and I don't want my students falling asleep. No offense to high school social studies teachers. But I want to make this a little more exciting. So I want to incorporate station rotations. But I have a problem like kind of conceptualizing like what are we going to do with station rotations in high school and all of that. So I'm going to say station rotation ideas for high school social studies. Oh, studying World War I causes. I'm going to say exploring. I don't think it really matters, but I'm going to say exploring. Okay, we'll just start with that. I think like the speed at which this happens is like unreal. It's crazy to me that like, okay, quickly it gave me 4 different stations for the students to explore. Okay, so gave me 4, and then each of the stations it looks like has a name to it, and then what the students are going to do with it. Remember how in my tools I like essentially asked AI to like give me more information, right? What if I wanted one of the stations? Can one of these stations explore the leaders of World War I? Right, absolutely. So it revised the stations, and now station 4 is leaders of World War I. And so I would need brief biographies of these leaders, primary source documents or speeches by these leaders, profile templates, guiding question worksheets. Okay, so now I also want to say, give me 5 to 6 leaders that my students should explore in station. Oh, we'll just say explore. Okay, so again, thinking about I want to keep poking. If I don't like what I got, keep poking, right? Keep regenerating these things so that eventually you get to a place where you're like, you know what, I'm pretty happy with some of this stuff. And it doesn't need to do all the work for you, but some of the work might be good, right? Some of this looks great to me. My husband was a high school social studies teacher, and I actually asked him, like, what would you prompt it with? And then I told him to guess which leaders it would tell me to research. And he was pretty close at which ones they have the students researching. So that's an assistant. So an assistant, again, is just going to be like brainstorming ideas with you. Okay, so now if I wanted to switch gears and I want to now talk about like a new topic with SchoolAI, with my co-teacher chatbot, it's probably a good idea to start a fresh chat. Because right now, my chatbot is thinking about World War I, causes, leaders, my station rotations, all that kind of stuff. So if I switch and I say, hey, now can we talk about linear algebra? It's going to be like, no, it has nothing to do with this. So in the top right, I'm going to start a new chat. And now it's like a fresh slate. Again, it still knows that I'm a teacher, but I might say things like, I'm teaching 6th grade. We're talking about this topic and I want this sort of activity. That's going to help co-teacher just kind of stay a little bit focused in there. Okay, it is your turn now. So let's get you in School AI. So you are going to open a tab in Chrome. You're going to go to schoolai.com. When you get to schoolai.com, in the top right-hand corner, you'll click sign in, and then you'll have an option to sign in with Google. Once you are on this main page of School AI, I'm going to give you 5 minutes, just 5 minutes, to look at either tools or assistance. Don't you dare try and go to spaces yet because we're not there yet, okay? So tools and assistance are your two places to go, okay? If you're not really sure what you want to do with AI in your class, go to assistance and go to the AI and education coach and say, hey, here's who I am. Here's what I teach. How am I supposed to use this? How is this going to help me? Okay, so 5 minutes to do this, and then we will keep going. Tools and assistance, 5 minutes. All right, let's come back together. I want you to promise me that you're going to stop playing with the tools and assistants while we go through spaces, because I know that there's a lot that you can do with that, but I want you to see the student side of things. So we've talked about tools for teachers, assistants for teachers. This is all great. But as I told you at the beginning, one of the selling points for us with School AI was that it also had a student component that made us feel like it would be safe for our students to use. So let's go into spaces. So what I'm going to do though, and I want to give you like a little preview of what the next 25 minutes will kind of look like, because some of you are going to say, well, how did you get there? What did you do? So just the next 25 minutes, what we're going to do is I'm actually going to launch a space as if you were my students. So I'll give you a link to a space. You're going to interact with that space. I'm going to show you what it looks like on the back end for the teacher. And then I'll show you what I did beforehand to find the space, prep the space, send the space, okay? So we're gonna actually play with a space first, and then we'll look at how did we do that, okay? And again, your students right now. So I want you to think about your students. Now you can just be yourself in this space, that's totally fine. You can be a an overactive kid in the space. You could be maybe a kid that's having a tough morning. That's okay. You can take on a persona. Doesn't matter to me. However you want to interact with this space. Once I send the code to you, it's going to launch. It'll look like this. Any space that you launch with students will look exactly like this. It's going to ask them to type their name in. But wait, I teach high school or I teach middle school, and those kids are going to type in something like fart. We can always change their names. We can always kick them out. Okay. So don't worry too much about like what name they type in. Why does it do that? To protect student privacy. That's why it does it. And it's just like, Kahoot and some of the other products that we've used in the past where students may have to type their name in. If they're not comfortable typing their whole name, maybe they just type their initials. That's okay, right? So this happens to be a superhero discovery zone. So it says, what do you do when faced with a big problem? Do you plan carefully before acting, jump right in, tackle it head on, look for creative solutions, or ask friends for help? I definitely do see. So I'm just going to interact with this space by answering these questions. This space is specifically to figure out what superhero you are. Attached to no standards, right? Doesn't matter. That's fine. So I'm going to send you guys the link in the chat. And I would like for you to go ahead and interact with that space. Okay, hopefully you noticed that I paused the space for you right now. That's because obviously I wanted to draw your attention back to me. So as the teacher, when I launch a space, I'm able to see all the students that are in that space. So I can see everybody's initials or if they type their name. The little bubble next to you, some of them are green, some of them are yellow. Green means that they are engaged in the space. Yellow means they've been inactive for 2 minutes. Red means or gray means that they've been inactive for more than 5 minutes. So as we progress, obviously, then we wouldn't see students being as active in here. I also get a little sentiment. So a little emoji is going to pop up next to each student. That is going to kind of read the discussion of the student and determine if maybe that student is not engaged or showing distress or maybe needs help or is lost or whatever. So it's going to show me some of those things. Then it's going to give me a little headline here. It looks like Kelly may have finished hers because it gave me a little insight about Kelly. It says the student values planning and collaboration, but prefers solo work when possible. So this is something that's interesting. Maybe this is just like a getting to know you kind of activity. If I am interested in looking at a student's chat, I'm going to pick on Christy. So I can actually pull up Christy's full chat in here. Now, this example, for the most part, it just asked us to answer multiple choice questions. So I'm not getting a lot of insight in here, but you can imagine when I start getting students to actually chat with it, it's going to give me all of that information that the students are typing in there. Okay. So, if I am ready for you to go back to the activity, I can click resume at the top and it's going to resume that session for students. So imagine that maybe you're doing some kind of research or something like that in class and you just want to give the kids a little space to collaborate with AI. Then you're able to open those things up, pause it when you want the students to be paused, end it when you want it to be ended. So all of that information is going to be shared in there for students or for shared in there for you as the teacher. Okay. The other items that I am able to use on this teacher dashboard, up here at the top, I will zoom in just a little bit. I have this magic groups here. So if I click groups, what it's going to do, and I don't know if it's going to, oh, it did some of them. When I click groups, what it did for me was it actually grouped everybody together based on maybe some understanding or what type of superhero you're going to be. So we have a heroic leader. We also have some superhero in training. We might have a sidekick. So it'll group those students together. So imagine this space is more content focused. The chatbot is asking the students some questions. Maybe they're understanding the content, not understanding the content, and then it'll group those students based on how well they understand the content. Okay, so groups are in here. For some spaces, it works great. For other spaces, not so much. Along the top, the other things that I have here, I am able to view the space prompt, download the CSV, which is going to give me all that student information. I can invite students back to it, pause it, and end it. For individual students, let's talk about this. So imagine, again, you've got a class of students, they're however old they are. I have my own son is gonna be 12 in October, and he's a little sassy these days and not mommy's sweet little boy anymore. So imagine he got in here and he was just being himself, or being a little crazy, and he typed some things that were not appropriate. Okay, let's just say that that happens. Something that's not appropriate or might be a red flag, like some students are showing some signs of distress, something that I might need to talk to a counselor or a parent about. How can I capture what has been said so that I can share it with people that might not have School AI accounts? So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually click the three dots next to that student's chat. I'm able to copy the student link, which actually means that I have that space as the student. So once it loads, it'll give me that space as the student. So this is actually Melissa's space. So again, I'm kind of seeing everything in here. What else can I do in there? I can also just view the chat, pause the chat, or we talked about this. We've got that kid that types in something weird as their name, remove them. Go back in there. Let's try again. Um, if you're going to be taking this for any kind of like maybe a participation grade or whatever, obviously then you'd want students to actually be typing in their own name. But I would say this is more of like we're engaging the students in some conversations here. So as a teacher, you have a lot of control over what the students see, what is captured from what they're saying, and then what happens to that content after it's said. Okay. I would not share with the students that I can send their chat link to other people. I would not share that with them. I would let them know that I could see what they're chatting, like I could see what they're saying, and that I can see who they are. I think that's important to share with them, but I wouldn't share that you can share it then outside of School AI. That's just me personally. Okay, so again, I told you I was gonna throw this out at you, and then I'm gonna rein it back a little bit, and I'm gonna show you how do we get started with these things? 'Cause this is great, but I want my kids to do this. Or maybe like I'm not really into superheroes. I'm actually gonna end this chat and then go back to my spaces. So at the top of our School AI. We already looked at tools, we already looked at assistants, and spaces right here, we have discover, create, and sessions. So discover is I want to find spaces that other people have created. If you've used Flipgrid in the past, think of it like a library, right? There's a library of spaces that other people have done that I can use and manipulate and all that stuff. We'll look at those in just a second. I can create and manage my own custom spaces. Personally, I'm not ready for that yet. I don't even know how to create a custom space. Like I can't conceptualize how do I take it from the ground to like a fully developed space. I really need somebody like get me to the first or second floor and then I'll take it from there, right? So create is when I've mastered this and I'm ready to start creating some custom spaces. And then view sessions is going to be any sessions that I've given over time, whether they're active, how many participants they have. So you can see some of my sessions here. One session that I want to recommend if you are an elementary teacher or an English teacher and you want to encourage students to pick more diverse books than they maybe have, or they want, you've got a lot of kids that are like, I've read everything I want to read. And you're like, that's not possible, right? They actually have a book recommender. I did this with my son's fifth grade class. And the teacher said that every kid came to library that week, like with a list of books that it had recommended. So book recommender is really awesome. Melissa, I know you are in this session. I'm going to also get with you because I want to tell you that you can customize the book recommender and upload the entire list of library books that you have available to students, and then it will only recommend the books from that list. So if you're thinking about like, okay, it's great that it recommended all these books, but we don't have those books in our library, that's a problem, right? So it can actually pull from a custom list of books. Okay, so let's discover some of these spaces. So I want you to click on spaces up here and then click discover. Okay, so I've got a bunch of spaces in here. One thing that I will mention is we do have, and I think this is like an update as of like this week. Remember in my tools, I could attach a standard to that worksheet that I was creating. We now have spaces for all of our standards too. So we'll get to that in just a second. I'm not going to do that yet. I'm going to scroll down and I just want to show you like a little tour of this area here. Some of you, your eyes are going to get really big and you're going to go, there's so much in here. You don't have to do all the things, okay? I just wanted you to see what's possible. Okay. Spaces for everyday use. These are going to be simple spaces that may not be connected to any content in particular yet, but that you could connect to content specifically. So like a bell ringer. Most of us, I would say in secondary, a lot of us use bell ringers. Okay. A bell ringer is great. I don't want to have to create the bell ringer all the time. So maybe I click bell ringer. I type in what my topic is. I'm going to say, here's my grade level, maybe some special instructions for the students, maybe class description for the AI bot, just so that it knows a little bit more about them. Or what about some specific questions it wants me to ask each student, or I want it to ask each student. So I'm going to add all of those details in there. On the right side of this, right here, we have Start Preview. That's going to actually let me see what is this bot going to look like for a student. Without launching it with anybody, what would this look like for a kid? If I'm ready to launch it with somebody, then I can launch down here at the bottom, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But this is kind of those just general, again, they don't cover anything specific, but they're just a little push or a little help, a little activity, maybe an exit ticket, something like that. So we have several spaces for everyday use. If you asked me what are my two favorite tools right now in spaces, or my two favorite spaces, book recommender, love that one, Video Explorer. Video Explorer is going to take a URL from a YouTube video. So you just copy and paste the URL. It's going to add questions to the video as the students watch it, and also engage them in a little chat bot. So it'll show a video at the top, questions embedded in the video, think Edpuzzle. And then at the bottom, it's also going to allow students to chat with it. So maybe a kid has a question about something. There's some content that was covered that they don't understand. So they can ask a question in there. Any of that chat that's coming through, guess what? You get to see it as the teacher. You're going to see all those things come through. So if you're like, man, I'd really like to start using video in my classroom, but I don't want to take the time to like create all the questions, or use Video Explorer, because this is going to save you so much time. Even if it's like, maybe this is your sub plans. This is the sub plan for while you're gone. I have a video here. I'm going to have Video Explorer. I'm going to send it to all my kids, and there we go. Now they've reviewed the content, and I can see, because remember, it also is going to group the students together by their understanding. It's going to give me some insights on students. Maybe there's some kids that I need to follow up with because they didn't understand the content completely, something along those lines. Okay. We are running out of time, but I'm going to get through everything, I promise, and then I will stay after if you do have any questions. Okay. There are also subject tutors for all ages, And again, you can get in here and you can customize those a little bit and say like, okay, I'm English, but I'm talking about 4th grade English stuff. So I can customize those things. There's some collections in here. High school teachers, there is a test prep collection that includes things like SAT, PSAT, ACT, all of that kind of stuff. They actually, I believe they partnered, or they are partnering with College Board to also create some AP test tutors, but I don't think that those are ready yet. Okay, next up, we have spaces that have just been created by people. So think about like Flipgrid, something like that, where a teacher has created a space like, what superhero are you? And you just want to use it. So they've got created spaces in here, as well as featured creators and subject areas. This is really where you can just sort of start to explore what other people are doing with the content that you're teaching. Okay, I'm going to scroll all the way to the top, and I promise I'm going to stop talking soon. I'm going to just pick a random standard. Indiana standards, I'm going to say 7th grade. We will do math because that's what I used to teach. And I'll go to number sense. So it's pulling every number sense standard for 7th grade. I was going to point at my screen and then I realized you guys can't see where I'm pointing. So this content here, that's the standard. Okay. And these are the spaces related to that standard. If I scroll down, here's another standard, spaces related to that standard. Another standard and spaces related to that standard. Notice that most of these spaces include a sidekick. I'll talk about that in a second, a bell ringer, and an exit ticket. So I'm able to maybe launch the exit ticket one, and then I can add additional things in here that I want to. Kim, you asked about uploading a document to like the bell ringers. You're not able to upload documents to the bell ringers. The only one that I've seen it on is going to be the book recommender. That's the one that I've seen it on. Okay, Sidekick. That's the last thing that I'm going to talk about. Sidekick is basically like the co-teacher assistant that we had for teachers, but for students. So maybe my students are writing like their first 5-paragraph essay. They've never really done something like that before. And I want them to have a little friend to help refine their writing, not do their writing, because it's just not going to happen. If I ask it to write something, it's not going to write it for me. But I just want it to like kind of coach them on specific things that I might be looking for in their writing. So I can say, hey, we're writing a 5-paragraph essay for the first time. These are the specific things that I'm looking for students to work on. Can you provide feedback? So maybe my kids have been writing this in a Google Doc. They've got their maybe second draft ready to go. Now I want them to copy and paste it into the Sidekick. So I don't introduce it right away. I introduce it a little into the writing process. And then when I'm ready, I click launch for them. Oh, I should fill some things out. A 5-paragraph essay. Okay, I click launch. And that code that I sent to all of you, I get that code here. Copy, paste it into Google Classroom, paste it into Canvas, paste it wherever. I can also create this space and always, if I like am not ready to share it with students yet, I have it in all of my spaces here and can just copy it again to send it to my students. If you're interested in looking at what the Video Explorer space looks like, I'm going to paste an example in my chat so that you can see that if you'd like to. You don't feel like you need to, though. Okay. Wrapping up here, we've talked about a lot of things, and I understand that. Please know that this is just step one of this school AI rollout. So, as some of you may have seen, we did receive a grant from the state to provide professional development on AI and specifically school AI over the next year. So, with that grant, we're able to continue this conversation. You all are kind of our early adopters. So, you're the ones that said, you know what, I want to learn about this right away. So congratulations. Thank you for coming in. We will be creating an AI task force over the next year. I'm not exactly sure what that's going to look like yet because we just wrote the grant and got it, and then school ended immediately. But if you're interested in it, this does not mean that you have to do it. But if you're interested in maybe even just learning a little bit more about it, this just lets me know that I'm not the only one that cares about these things. If you're interested in this, go ahead and fill out this form. It's again, you're not tied to anything. It's just if you'd like to talk about some of these things. With this grant, we're able to provide some premium subscriptions to School AI. So right now we're using the free version. We're able to provide some training with Matt Miller, who's an AI expert and is also going to be at the Ignite conference, and do some really important AI work in our district. So interest form if you would like to fill that out. I did not mention this before. I talked about tools and assistants not having a limit, but I do want to mention that you're going to see in spaces that you'll have 150 interaction limit. That's 150 students per day on your spaces. If you happen to join our AI task force, it will be a smaller group, but we're going to have some seats available. You will get a premium subscription to School AI, and that 150 limit will go away. So there will be no limit on how many students can get into School AI each day. Now, what I will say is you're not using this every single day. Please don't use this every single day. That's like way too much, right? But you're going to be using it periodically, and you want to have some of those barriers down. Then that AI task force will be for you. I also included a little graphic here of an explanation of each of those tools just to, again, kind of help out, like, when do I use this? Who uses this? All that stuff. And then a funny little tweet that I saw, it says, you know what the biggest problem with pushing all things AI is? Wrong direction. I want AI to do my laundry and dishes so that I can do art and writing, not AI to do my art and writing so that I can do my laundry and dishes. So I'm sure we're probably all in that same camp there.